hello everyone. Welcome back in. Let me turn on my. Well, I don't think I was gonna say maybe I should turn on my bedroom light, but I don't think my lighting is that bad in order to for it. I don't think my lighting in my bedroom's that bad in order to turn on my bedroom light. So we're just gonna leave it as is, and we're gonna go on along with it. So, as I mentioned in my last video, we are going to be talking about in this video, the latest RPI and the ARC rankings. Now, this is as of last Tuesday, so this does not reflect any of the Crossroads League volleyball games from last Wednesday night, which ended the regular season. It also does not include the latest numbers regarding the first round of the league tournament, the quarterfinal rounds that happened 2 days ago, this past Saturday. So again, take this with a grain of salt, I should say. And as I mentioned in my last video, I'm going to be recording a video just like this coming up next Monday, once the league tournament is official, and once we have the final RPI and the ARC rankings listed, to talk about which teams for sure should be in the national tournament. And this is just Crossroads League teams only, which teams definitely should be in, which teams are on the bubble. So make sure that you stay tuned for that coming up next Monday. Now, in terms of the latest, okay. So without further ado, let's dive in to this video. And again, this was as of November 2nd, so 8 days ago. November 2nd was a Saturday. And again, so like I mentioned, I'll be recording a video next Monday after the league tournament is over, talking about the final RPI and ARC rankings. So we're all up to date, for sure, which teams are on the bubble going into the national tournament, which teams have the best chance of getting in, all that good stuff. So again, make sure that you stay tuned for that. So looking at the Crossroads League schools, now this is just the RPI. I'll pull up the ARC rankings here momentarily. So in the RPI, and again, we're just talking about Crossroads League schools. Now, in the RPI, Indiana Wesleyan has an RPI ranking of 5. Their strength of schedule is a 6. So, but again, they don't really matter because they're ranked 8th in the nation. They already locked up a bid to the national tournament because they won the regular season when they beat Marion on the road in Indianapolis back on October 29th. But still, it's good to see where they are in terms of their RPI and their strength of schedule. Now, for just talking briefly about teams ahead of them, Northwestern out of Iowa has an RPI of being number 1, which is no surprise there. This was a team that Indiana Wesleyan beat in the regular season, at least the end of August. Now that was without Ava Geroldsma, I might add, and that 3-1 win that the Wildcats had that day. And then McPherson, their ranking is number 2 in the RPI. Eastern Oregon is 3rd. And Concordia, Nebraska is 4th. Now, for contrast, the Wildcats have not played McPherson. They have not played Eastern Oregon. They did play Concordia out of Nebraska and lost 3-2, which was without Ava Geroldsma. So, again, you kind of take that with a grain of salt, I guess I should say. Now, these 4 teams that are ahead of the Wildcats in the RPI, these are more than likely the 4 teams that the Wildcats are going to be facing probably, but starting in the Elite 8 round and going all the way to the national championship game if the Lady Wildcats want to win 3 straight championships, which they're on a quest to do so this year. So it's, again, that's a whole nother ball of wax, I guess I should say. Or at least that's one of my sayings, a whole nother ball of wax. But I'm not going to continue to dive into that. But it is fun talking about teams ahead of IWU, where they stack up against some of the teams that they lost to earlier in the year, where teams that they beat earlier in the year. So that's a lot of fun too. So now getting back to just the Crossroads schools only, you had Mount Vernon Nazarene. Their RPI, they are 8th in the RPI right now. Their strength of schedule is 3rd. So, and again, this is another team that for sure is locked into the national tournament, regardless of what happens the rest of the Crossroads League tournament. Because of their national ranking, they're currently ranked 12th. That may change. They may move up a couple spots. They may stay the same. We don't know. But that's definitely going to be interesting for them. But at least the good news for them is they're ranked high enough in the RPI, and their strength of schedule is excellent. And so obviously, it's looking real. Again, they're for sure locking the national tournament because of their national ranking. So, but still, it's nice to compare, where Mount Vernon is, even though they're already locked in. Same with the Wildcats. So the next team down that I wanted to talk about, and this is a big one, is Huntington, a team on the bubble. And again, these RPI numbers are going to change come next Monday when I talk about the final numbers, I think I'll dive into this a little bit more. But at least for now, Huntington's RPI is 20th. Now, one thing that they are struggling with is their strength of schedule. They are 59th in their strength of schedule compared to Taylor, who is 18th in their strength of schedule. So, if you wanted to, I guess you could argue that Taylor is looking better to get into the national tournament than Huntington is. Now, again, take that with a grain of salt, which I honestly, and again, I'm not trying to be biased toward any team in these videos, but, and of course, if you were with me last March, I really dove into this for women's basketball, which I definitely plan on doing that again this March, right before the national tournament. And I'll take a look at the men's side too, just to see, where the Crossroads League teams stand up in terms of that. So again, we're still a few months away from that, but, I definitely plan on, doing, still doing the women's RPI and ARC rankings. And this year, I don't think I did the men's ARC and RPI last year. Maybe I did, I can't remember. But if I did not, I'll definitely do that this year come March for not just the women, but the men as well, in terms of just Crossroads League schools only. So I guess there's first time for everything, right? So getting back to Huntington and Taylor. Now, for Taylor, I in my personal opinion, and again, I'm not trying to be biased or anything like that, but I think Taylor should be in a way ahead of Huntington, because Taylor, even though they have a worse strength of schedule than the Foresters, the Trojans have a stronger resume because they have beaten more ranked teams than Huntington did. Now, for Huntington, yes, they did beat Rio Grande. They did beat Indiana Tech, which were both receiving votes. So those are good wins. They did sweep Marion twice in the regular season. Those are excellent wins. They swept Taylor the second time in Huntington, so that's an excellent win. But for Huntington, now they lost twice to Indiana Wesleyan. But I think if I'm the league, I look at that game because of how tough they played Iowa both times in the regular season. Against Mount Vernon the first time they played them, Huntington played Mount Vernon really, really tough. So I think you also have to take a look at that if you are the league committee. That is for sure. But now on the contrast for Taylor, they upset Missouri Baptist this year. They also, I believe they beat Montana Tech. I want to say Montana State Northern, one of them. So now those are good wins for Taylor. They beat number 13, then number 13, Mount Vernon at home. So that's an excellent win for Taylor. They not just that, but they beat Marion on the road in Indianapolis. So that's an excellent win for them. And then they had an excellent game against number 8 Indiana Wesleyan last Saturday, even though they just fell short in 5 sets. But honestly, Taylor should have beaten Iowa in that game. So you look at Taylor, I think Taylor has a much stronger resume than Huntington does. But you look at Huntington, they're ranked 20th in the RPI. Their strength of schedule is 59th. Now going down to Taylor's 22nd in the RPI, but their strength of schedule is much higher at 18th. Now, Taylor does have some really bad losses. I mean, they did lose to Grace. That was a bad loss. They lost to Huntington. That was a bad loss. So Taylor does have bad losses, but it kind of equals itself out, especially with their upset wins that they have, not just with teams in preseason, but also especially with the win against Mount Vernon. And that was at home, by the way, in Upland, Indiana. So again, to me, if it was me, I would definitely have Taylor in ahead of Huntington. But you look at Huntington's record, I mean, they're currently sitting 24-6. So you look at that and you're like, okay, well, they definitely should be in based on overall record. But to me, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I honestly don't know, how the league is going, or how the committee is going to look at Huntington. But, to me, that they, yes, they do have some good wins, but they also have some bad losses. But the same goes for Taylor. But Taylor, though, in my opinion, does have a little bit of a stronger resume than Huntington does. So, I mean, maybe if you're the committee, you put in both Taylor and Huntington to make it more fair, which would make more sense to me. Because, remember Mount Vernon, I believe it was 3 years ago. Mount Vernon, I believe, was 27-7. But they did not make the national tournament, which was really surprising. But that year they didn't really beat anybody in non-conference, and they lost to, and they were the 4 seed that year in the Crossroads League, and they lost twice to the 3 teams ahead of them in the standings, and then they lost to fifth-seeded Bethel in the first round of the league tournament that year. So that I think was the big reason why Mount Vernon did not make the national tournament that year. And then looking down to other teams that are on the bubble quickly, Marion's ranked 34th in the RPI. Their strength of schedule is 22nd. Now this is interesting for Marion. I mean, I know that they're a 6 seed right now, but they are not your typical 6 seed in the Crossroads League tournament. They are way more talented than that. Now, yes, they have been inconsistent this year. They do have a really good RPI. Their strength of schedule is really good as well. But I don't see how Marion gets in the national tournament unless they make it to the title game, which they would have to hope that Indiana Wesleyan beats Spring Arbor on Wednesday night and Marion upsets Mount Vernon. And if that happens, then Marion would steal a bid away from somebody, and they would be going to the national tournament getting the second automatic bid, because in that scenario, the Wildcats, they would make it to the title game, but the Wildcats are already in because they won the regular season. So Marion's a team that definitely is on the bubble. They're not out of it by any stretch, but to me, I just don't see how they get in the national tournament unless they run the table in the league tournament or hope that they make it to the title game and play Indiana Wesleyan. Those are the only scenarios for Marion to get in the national tournament, at least in my opinion. I don't think they get there. Even if they lose to Mount Vernon, you figure they would be, I believe, 18 and 11, and I just cannot see that. In that scenario, I cannot see Marion getting in ahead of Taylor or Huntington as far as that goes. So, I mean, this is obviously, it's going to come down to the nitty-gritty, that is for sure. And remember, the selection show is not until next Monday night at 5 p.m. Eastern time, so we still have, another week, I guess. Now, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because, once I record a video next Monday talking about the final RPI and the ARC rankings, just a few hours later, we're going to know who makes the national tournament and who doesn't. So, I tell you what, next Monday is going to be a fun day for sure. And then looking further down at other teams, in the Crossroads League, well, Bethel, their RPI was actually 51st. Their strength of schedule was 14th, but they're not going to make the national tournament because they lost to Mount Vernon in the first round, and they weren't going to get in anyway unless they ran the whole entire league tournament and or hoped that they would be able to play IWU in the league title game. None of that happened. And then you look down at Grace, 58th in the RPI, their strength of schedule 20th. So really, really amazing numbers there. But Grace was another team that they were not going to make the national tournament unless they ran the league tournament. They would have had to have, because they would have upset Iowa. They would have had to have beaten Spring Arbor, and then either Mount Vernon or Marion for the league championship. And that was going to be the only way Grace would have gotten into the national tournament. But obviously, because they lost the first round game to Indiana Wesleyan, that is exactly why they did not end up making the national tournament. And then finally, taking a look at so that's just the RPI and the strength of schedule. So real quick, looking at the ARC rankings, you have Indiana Wesleyan ranked is number 1 in the ARC. Mount Vernon Nazarene is 3rd in the ARC, but again, those two teams don't matter because of their national ranking. Here's what's interesting, though, in the ARC. Taylor is ranked 6th in the ARC. Huntington ranked 8th. Marion ranked 9th. Spring Arbor is 10th in the ARC, but they are completely out of the RPI ranking as well as the strength of schedule. So Spring Arbor, 23-9 right now. They're going to be another team that's going to be on the bubble. Now, yes, they do have a great ARC ranking, but unless their RPI ranking really jumps up when that comes out, which I'll talk more about that Monday. So when the final ratings come out for the RPI, the question is, does Spring Arbor's RPI jump, especially with them beating Huntington to end the regular season and then upsetting Taylor in the first round of the league tournament? That's the biggest question. If that happens, is there a chance that Spring Arbor, is looking a lot better for the national tournament if they get high enough in the RPI? Yes. As it stands right now, I just don't think Spring Arbor gets in because right now their RPI is not high enough. Now, yes, they do have a high ARC ranking, which helps them, but in return, they would also have to have a high RPI rating. And to me, they have not beaten anybody. Now, yes, they started off undefeated. Yes, they beat some receiving votes teams in preseason, but you're looking at a team that's 9-9 in the conference. All their losses were in conference. Now remember, at one point this year, 7 out of the 8 Crossroads League schools were either ranked inside the top 25 or receiving votes. The only school that was not ranked at all this year, including receiving votes, was Bethel. So obviously that puts things into perspective at least a little bit. And then, of course, the other teams that have a high ARC ranking was Grace 12th, Bethel 14th. Of course, those two teams don't matter because they're not in the running anymore for the NAIA National Tournament with losing in the league tournament. So, I mean, this is really going to get interesting. And then Marion, having an ARC ranking of 9. I talked earlier in this video about their RPI rating being, I believe it was in the 30s, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, Marion, to me, at least right now, but by looking at the RPI, the latest RPI and ARC rankings, to me, if I had to predict which teams would be in based on the last RPI and the ARC ranking, I would have Huntington in. I would also have Taylor in, and I would have Marion in ahead of Spring Arbor. Those would be the 3 teams, in my opinion, that I would have in, especially based off the ARC ranking. Even though Spring Arbor has a high ARC ranking, they do not have a really good RPI rating. So they're going to have to hope that their RPI ranking goes way up, and that their ARC ranking goes up. So we're going to know a lot more next Monday once I talk more about the final RPI and ARC rankings. That is for sure. Because until then, we just, we're really not teetotally sure exactly who's going to make the league tournament, who is not, or not the league tournament, but the national tournament. We just don't know as of right now how that's going to play out. But it's been really, really fun looking at the latest RPI and the ARC and then trying to figure out, as of right now, which teams would be in, which teams would be out. Now, to me, I would have, based on the latest rankings, I would have Taylor, Marion, and Huntington all getting in the national tournament, and I would have Spring Arbor being among the first 4 out because of their RPI rating not being high enough currently. Now, again, that could change. All the numbers are going to change. But at least as of today, if the selection show was today, those would be the teams that I would have in because of the strength of schedule numbers, because of the RPI and the ARC numbers as well. So again, it's really going to be interesting next Monday. And again, once I record a video next Monday giving you a final prediction of which teams I think will be in, which teams won't make it, it's really going to be interesting. That's pretty much all we can say right now. It's wide open. Anybody can get in. Anybody, it can beat anybody in terms of league tournament. We've already seen that this year. It's been so competitive all year long. And it's just going to get even crazier as we are 1 week away from officially, 1 week away and a few hours away from knowing which teams are going to be in, which teams won't. I'm going to dive more specifically into all of that next Monday after recapping the league championship game. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Then come March, getting a chance to talk not just about the women's side like I did last year for women's basketball, but also men's basketball, and seeing how all that plays out going into the basketball national tournament coming up. And that will all be coming your way in the first week and a half of March. So we're a little ways away from that. But it's awesome getting a chance to talk about that briefly, giving you, letting you know ahead of time what I plan on doing. So it's going to be a lot of fun this year. Season 2 is going to absolutely be a blast. So thank you so much for tuning in to this video. And if you did like this video, if you did enjoy this video, or if it was super helpful to you, please either like, comment, or subscribe to my channel. Any one of those options helps me out greatly. I appreciate any feedback that you provide me. And if you are brand new to my channel, please subscribe. Also share this with your friends, your family. Make sure they subscribe to my channel so you are first notified whenever I upload new episodes here on my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you tuning into this video. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week, a great day, and God bless.